I trusted the letter. Then Harvard called to tell me I'd never been accepted. Let me back up. I'm Noah Martinez, 18 years old from Phoenix, Arizona, and 3 weeks ago, I was the golden boy of Roosevelt High. Star student, debate captain, the kid who worked nights at Target to help my mom pay rent. You know the type. The one everyone roots for because hey, if Noah can make it, maybe there's hope for the rest of us. Then that letter arrived. Harvard University. Full ride. For years, everything covered. I remember holding that cream-colored paper in my shaking hands, reading those beautiful words over and over until they blurred. My mom cried. My little sister screamed. Our neighbor Mrs. Chun brought over tamales to celebrate. The whole block felt like it was vibrating with joy. But here's where it gets weird. And I mean skin-crawling, gut-twisting weird. The letter looked perfect. Official Harvard letterhead, embossed seal, fancy signature from someone named Dr. Rebecca Thornfield, Director of Admissions. Even the envelope felt expensive, you know? That thick paper that rich people use. I'd never gotten mail that felt that important. My hands were literally trembling as I posted the acceptance letter on Instagram. Dreams do come true, I wrote, with a photo of me holding that beautiful lie. Within an hour, it had 50 likes. By morning, 3,000. By the end of the week, it was everywhere. Local news picked it up first. Phoenix teen beats the odds. Earns full ride to Harvard. Then the regional papers. Then somehow, impossibly, it went viral on TikTok. Kids from across the country were sharing my story, calling me inspiration, proof that hard work pays off. I felt like I was flying. For exactly 13 days. That's when my phone buzzed with a call from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Unknown number, but something about those digits made my stomach drop like I was on a broken elevator. Noah Martinez? The voice was crisp, professional, cold as January in Boston. Yeah, that's me. This is Jennifer Walsh from Harvard University Admissions. We need to talk. The words that followed, I can't even describe how they felt landing in my brain, like ice water flooding my skull. Mr. Martinez, we've been made aware of social media posts claiming you've received a full scholarship to our university. I need to inform you that Harvard has no record of your application, your acceptance, or any correspondence with you whatsoever. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering on my bedroom floor. Mr. Martinez? Are you there? I picked it up with fingers that felt numb, detached from my body. There has to be some mistake. I have the letter right here. From Dr. Rebecca Thornfield. Silence. Then, softer but somehow more devastating. Mr. Martinez, we don't have anyone by that name in our admissions department. We never have. The room started spinning. The walls felt like they were closing in, pressing against my chest until I couldn't breathe. Everything I'd posted, everyone I'd told, all those congratulations and news interviews, I was about to become the biggest liar on the internet. I need to go, I whispered, and hung up before she could respond. For about 10 minutes, I just sat there on my bed, staring at that letter. The paper suddenly felt cheap between my fingers. The signature looked shaky, unnatural. How had I not noticed before? How had I been so desperate to believe that I'd ignored every red flag? But then something clicked in my brain, something that felt like anger mixed with determination. I wasn't just going to roll over and accept this. Someone had done this to me. Someone had set me up to look like a fraud in front of thousands of people. I was going to find out who. First, I called Harvard back. Same woman, Jennifer Walsh, and this time I was ready with questions. Ms. Walsh, if someone wanted to fake a Harvard acceptance letter, how would they do it? She paused. Mr. Martinez, I'm not sure I should be discussing. Please. My voice cracked. In 3 hours, this is going to be all over social media. People are going to think I made this up for attention. I need to understand what happened to me. Another pause. Then, quietly, our letterhead has been copied before. Usually it's kids trying to impress their parents, not this scale of publicity. Do you have any idea who might have access to your personal information? Address, high school, grades. That's when it hit me. The scholarship application. 3 months ago, I'd applied for something called the American Dream Scholarship. Found it online, looked legitimate. Full rides for deserving students, essay about overcoming adversity, financial documents, transcripts. Everything a scammer would need to craft a convincing fake letter. My stomach turned as I remembered filling out that application at 2 a.m., excited about the possibility of free college money. I'd been so careful about researching schools, so paranoid about college application scams, but this had looked real. Professional website, testimonials from past winners, even a phone number that someone actually answered. How could I have been so stupid? I hung up with Ms. Walsh and immediately started digging. The American Dream Scholarship website was still up, still looked professional, still had that same phone number. But when I called it now, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. My hands were shaking as I opened my laptop and started researching. American Dream Scholarship. No results. Wait, actually, there were results, but they were all recent. News articles about other kids, other viral scholarship announcements, other fake acceptance letters. I wasn't the only one. There was Jessica from Atlanta, celebrating her full ride to Stanford. Marcus from Detroit posting about his MIT acceptance. Sarah from Seattle crying happy tears over her Yale scholarship. All fake. All from the same scholarship application. All about to have their lives imploded just like mine. The worst part? Our stories were spreading faster than wildfire. Hashtag scholarship scam was trending. People were calling us liars, attention seekers, fraudsters. The comments on my Instagram post had turned vicious. Fake news kid strikes again. This is why you can't trust social media. Pathetic loser making up stories for clout. Each comment felt like a punch to the gut. These people didn't know me, didn't know how hard I'd worked, didn't know that I'd been scammed just like everyone else. But that didn't matter. In their eyes, I was guilty until proven innocent. My mom found me crying over my laptop at 3 a.m. Mijo, what's wrong? You've been locked in here for hours. I showed her everything. The Harvard call, the fake scholarship, the other victims, the brutal comments. She sat on my bed and held me while I sobbed like I hadn't since I was little. We're going to figure this out, she whispered. Someone did this to you, and we're going to make them pay. But how do you prove you're innocent when the evidence makes you look guilty? How do you convince thousands of strangers that you're not a liar when you can't even convince yourself you weren't incredibly naive? The next morning brought fresh misery. The local news station that had celebrated my achievement now wanted to interview me about the deception. My principal called to discuss appropriate consequences for bringing negative attention to the school. 3 colleges that had been recruiting me suddenly stopped returning calls. My future was evaporating in real time. That's when I decided to fight back. Not just for me, but for Jessica and Marcus and Sarah and whoever else had been caught in this web. Someone had orchestrated this, profited from our desperation, and destroyed our reputations. I was going to find them. I started with the website. The American Dream Scholarship site was registered to a company called Future Foundations LLC. Address in Delaware, which apparently is where companies go to hide. Phone number disconnected. But the internet never really forgets anything. Does it? Using every research trick I'd learned in debate class, I started digging deeper. Cached versions of websites, reverse image searches, domain registration histories. It was like being a digital detective, following breadcrumbs through the maze of online deception. 3 days of obsessive searching led me to a name. David Chun. Not my neighbor Mrs. Chun. This was a different Chun. A man with a history of educational fraud. Someone who'd been sued by the Federal Trade Commission for running fake scholarship programs. But here's where it gets really twisted. David Chun had an accomplice. Someone on the inside, someone with access to real college letterheads and signatures, someone who could make these fake acceptance letters look absolutely perfect. Dr. Rebecca Thornfield. She wasn't made up. She was real. But she didn't work for Harvard. She worked for Arizona State University. In the registrar's office. With access to student records, transcripts, and yes, samples of official university correspondence that could be copied and modified. My heart was pounding as I put the pieces together. Dr. Thornfield had been helping Chun create fake acceptance letters, using real university materials to make them completely convincing. They'd target kids who applied for fake scholarships, kids who were desperate enough to believe anything that offered hope. Kids like me. But why had they done it? What did they gain from destroying our lives? The answer made me sick to my stomach. They were selling our personal information. All those scholarship applications, all that detailed financial and academic data. They were packaging it up and selling it to identity thieves, marketing companies, and who knows what other criminals. We weren't just victims of a cruel prank. We were products being sold to the highest bidder. I had proof now. Screenshots, connection records, financial trails leading back to Chen's business accounts. But I also had a choice to make. I could take this evidence to the police, to the FBI, to whoever handles this kind of fraud. Let the authorities sort it out while I tried to rebuild my reputation from the ashes. Or, I could expose everything myself. Tell the real story. Show the world exactly how sophisticated this scam was. Prove that we weren't liars but victims of something much bigger and more sinister. I chose to fight. Working with Jessica, Marcus, and Sarah, we put together a comprehensive expose. Documents, screenshots, connection charts, everything we discovered about Chen and Thornfield's operation. We reached out to a journalist who specialized in online fraud, someone who understood the story we were really telling. The article went live on a Tuesday morning. The scholarship scam. How fake acceptance letters destroyed students' lives. Within hours, it was everywhere. Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, evening news broadcast. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. We weren't liars anymore. We were heroes who'd uncovered a massive fraud that had victimized hundreds of students across the country. The FBI opened an investigation. Chun and Thornfield were arrested. Dozens of other fake scholarship sites were shut down. My Instagram comments changed too. You're amazing for fighting back. Thank you for exposing these criminals. This took incredible courage. But you know what? The vindication felt hollow. Because even though I'd proven my innocence, even though I'd helped bring down a criminal enterprise, I still didn't have what I'd wanted most. A real path to college. Harvard wasn't going to magically accept me just because I'd been scammed. Stanford wasn't going to offer me a scholarship out of sympathy. My grades were good, but not Ivy League good. My family was still broke. My future still hung in the balance. That's when something unexpected happened. Jennifer Walsh from Harvard called me again. Mr. Martinez? This is Jennifer Walsh. I've been following the news about your investigation into the scholarship fraud. My stomach clenched. Yeah. I wanted to let you know that while Harvard can't offer you admission through our regular process at this point, we've been impressed by your investigative work and your dedication to exposing fraud that hurt other students. She paused, and I held my breath. We'd like to invite you to apply for our spring semester admission with a full application fee waiver and guaranteed consideration by our Social Impact Scholarship Committee. It's not a guarantee of acceptance, but it's a real opportunity. I nearly dropped the phone again, but this time from joy instead of devastation. Are you serious? Very serious, Mr. Martinez. What you did took intelligence, persistence, and moral courage. Those are exactly the qualities Harvard looks for in our students. 3 months later, I'm writing this story from my dorm room in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Yes, I got in. Yes, I got the scholarship. But more importantly, I learned something about myself that no scammer could ever take away. I don't give up. Even when the whole world thinks I'm lying, even when my future looks impossible, even when it would be easier to just disappear and start over somewhere else. I fight. The fake scholarship scam destroyed dozens of dreams, but it also revealed something powerful. When kids like me are pushed into a corner, when we're desperate enough and determined enough, we can move mountains. We can take down criminals. We can change our own stories. David Chen got 3 years in federal prison. Dr. Thornfield lost her job and her professional license. The fake scholarship sites were shut down, and new regulations were put in place to protect students from similar scams. But the real victory? Jessica got into Stanford for real. Marcus is studying engineering at Georgia Tech. Sarah's at the University of Washington on a full academic scholarship. We all found our paths, not because someone handed us fake letters, but because we refused to let criminals define our futures. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you ends up being the best thing that could have happened. Not because it was easy, not because it didn't hurt, but because it forced you to discover strength you never knew you had. The letter was fake, but my dreams? Those were always real. And nobody can take that away from me. The comments are still coming in on my social media posts about this whole experience. Most of them are supportive now, congratulating me on Harvard, praising the investigation, sharing their own stories of almost falling for similar scams. But every once in a while, I still get someone who insists I made the whole thing up for attention. Someone who thinks the entire story, from the fake letter to the criminal investigation to my Harvard acceptance, is just an elaborate hoax. You know what I tell them? Check the court records. David Chun, case number 2024, SAR 892. U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona. Dr. Rebecca Thornfield, employment termination confirmed by Arizona State University Press release dated October 15. FBI case file available through Freedom of Information Act request. Facts don't lie even when people want to believe they do. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never gotten that fake letter. Would I have applied to Harvard on my own? Would I have pushed myself to find the resources, to believe I was good enough to take that leap? Probably not. I would have played it safe, applied to state schools, convinced myself that Ivy League dreams were for other people. Kids with money, kids with connections, kids whose parents went to college. The scam taught me something I never would have learned otherwise. Sometimes you have to get knocked down before you realize how high you can jump. My mom keeps that fake Harvard letter in a frame on her kitchen wall, right next to my real acceptance letter. When people ask her why, she smiles and says, "To remember that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is just the beginning of the best thing." She's right. But here's the part of the story I haven't told you yet. The part that still keeps me awake some nights, staring at my dorm room ceiling, wondering if I made the right choices. When I was investigating David Chun, I found something else. Something that made me question everything I thought I knew about this whole situation. Among his files, buried in spreadsheets of stolen student data, I found a list. A list of students who had been specifically targeted for the fake scholarship scam. Not random applicants, but carefully selected candidates. My name was at the top. Not alphabetically. Not by application date. By something else entirely. Next to my name was a note. High-profile potential. Viral capacity. Excellent. Sympathy factor. Maximum. They hadn't just scammed me randomly. They had chosen me specifically because they knew my story would spread, knew that a working-class Hispanic kid from Phoenix getting into Harvard would generate exactly the kind of attention they wanted. I was the perfect victim. That realization hit me like a truck. Everything I'd been through, all the pain and humiliation and eventual triumph, it had been calculated from the beginning. I wasn't just unlucky. I was targeted. But you know what? That knowledge didn't make me angry. It made me proud. Because they chose me thinking I'd be easy to destroy. They picked me because they thought a kid like me would crumble under pressure, would disappear quietly when the truth came out, would be too ashamed and too poor and too powerless to fight back. They were wrong. Dead wrong. I didn't just survive their scam. I dismantled it. I turned their weapon into my victory. I used their crime as a stepping stone to everything I'd ever dreamed of. That's power they never saw coming. Now, when I walk across Harvard Yard to my classes, when I see other students who've never had to work for anything in their lives, when I remember where I came from and how I got here, I think about David Chun sitting in his prison cell. I wonder if he realizes what he did. Not the crime, but the gift. He gave me proof that I could handle anything, that I could turn disaster into opportunity, that I could take the worst day of my life and transform it into the best year. That's worth more than any scholarship. The fake letter was just paper, but the strength I found fighting back, the connections I made with other survivors, the confidence I gained from taking down criminals twice my age, that's real. That's mine. That's forever. So here's my advice for anyone listening who's ever been knocked down, humiliated, betrayed, or made to feel like a fool. Don't you dare give up. Don't you dare let the people who hurt you have the last word. Fight back. Dig deeper. Find the truth. Tell your story. Because sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is just the universe's way of asking, how strong are you really? I found out I'm stronger than I ever imagined. And so are you. Ever been betrayed so deeply it changed your entire life? Drop your story in the comments and hit subscribe, because we're all in this fight together. The letter was fake, but my future? That's as real as it gets.